People have no idea about the number of lives that were lost here in the South End of America by Southern folks. And I'm talking about all Southerners. Black people have had our heritage hijacked from us with the advent of the public school system and the Freedmen's Bureau. Everything that was possibly done to divide and separate black folks and white folks in the South End of America was done. When Black History Month, and I'm so very proud of the Sons of Confederate Veterans, Harry Hirsch and Joseph Spacino in Cross City, who would take the time and invite my brother and I to mention the names of Levi Conine and Hope Collier, Horace King, who built the spiral staircases in the capital of Montgomery, and who was a bridge builder for the Confederacy. We talked this morning about General Robert E. Lee's body servant, the Honorable Reverend Mike Lee, who built the first credit union in America, and many churches in America. He was educated by the funds left to him by General Lee. And the very men, and some of these very men who looked after and did all to take care of those men who found themselves in a system called slavery. Here now, we're supposed to turn our backs on these very men that we call our family, and it is a tragedy for us all.
Well, you know, according to many of the historians today, these people were merely, they hated themselves. They hated, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like a baited situation.
But you see, the key issue here again is,
you know, they're trying to overcompensate. You know, they're really, they say they're not ashamed of where they came from, but they really are. They just don't realize they're ashamed. And if we could just get them in public education long enough, we can help you realize just how much you hate everybody.
Well, you know,
and we're going to be right back, okay? We're going to be right back.
Hello, this is Pastor Mike Slattery, freedomsdomain.com, Extreme Truth Radio, Internet broadcasting, bringing you the absolute truth. Privacy, constitutionalism, freedom, salvation, the Bible, truth, extreme solutions, Jesus Christ, reality, broadcast, Freedom's Domain. And now let's take a listen to Unreconstructed as they play Dixie.
And we're back, and we've got HK with us, and this is Pastor Mike Slattery, and we were just talking a little bit about some of the misappropriation of history, you might want to call it. Historically challenged is what my friends call it, historically challenged. It goes way beyond a lot of stuff. I picked up a history book that we homeschool all our children because we don't want to put them in a public school.
God bless you.
And I picked up a history book at the library. You know, they were selling them. It was about this thick, maybe 3.5 inches thick. And the American history based upon an apology for about white folks being really jerks their whole lives. I mean, the whole book was about that. They're this thick. No matter what page you turn to, no matter what section of history, somehow they got in. Either we beat up the Indians, or we beat up the black folks, or we beat up somebody. There was just nothing that we could do that was right. Somehow the country came out, you know, one of the greatest superpowers in the world, you know. And I'm not talking about this empire thing we've got now. I'm talking about up until 1861, the United States of America was probably the most prosperous, wealthy, peaceful nation in the world. I mean, Europe was ravaged by war. They had the 30 Years' War had gone on, plagues, influenza epidemics. You didn't have any of that stuff here, or not hardly anything. And The other thing that it had, we talked about cotton being king. I noticed the economic issues inside the book. They had a demographic between the North and the South. And they showed all these industries, right? And then cotton was like a long bar, and the North had hardly anything. But the way it made it look was, except for cotton, the North was paying all the taxes, was doing all the infrastructure, was doing all this, that, and the other. But what I noticed, and maybe you could bear it out, was there may have been more munitions, there may have been more vegetables, there may have been more of a lot of other things up north, but the percentage or volume of taxes that came from cotton versus coming from those other things, almost all the revenue in the United States came from one degree or another from cotton.
Absolutely. And that's the tragedy of it all, is that these people rewrote our history, and they don't talk about these things, and they don't talk about the Moral Act. They don't talk about the Abomination Acts that led up to the almost nullification. They don't talk about how taxes went from 15% around 87%. They don't talk about how Lincoln campaigned on the Moral Act. Mm-hmm. They don't talk about how they almost bankrupted the South. Now,
what is the Moral Act? This was an act of Congress?
Morrow was a gentleman who
Morrow, M-O-R-R-O-W?
No, M-O-R-R-I-L-L. I hope I get it.
Morrell, okay.
Morrow, basically, it was an act that was going to try to increase the tariffs again in the South and take them back to a level somewhere around 80%, 87%.
Well, now, doesn't the Constitution say that you can't charge a tax to go from one state to another?
Well, forget about that, because when you had the Louisiana Purchase and the purchase of territories, and you created an imbalance in Congress, those men, and especially taking under consideration that those men from the South had basically walked out of Congress and said, hey, listen, we're through with this. We're about ready to go.
Right.
The chances of the Moral Act passing, it was going to pass. And Lincoln had already said that he was going to sign it. It was going to go through.
So the South saw this was like, there's a meteor coming. This is an asteroid. This is something big.
They had already been through it. The Abomination Acts, they'd already been through it. Nullification was on the table.
Right.
And got that South Carolina, because basically we said we've had enough of this. Mm-hmm. And I think it scared most of those northern industrialists enough that they basically backed off of it. Mm-hmm. But as Lincoln began to campaign on it again, the South knew that the taxes were going to go sky high. And I think, and we have to keep it in its proper perspective. And most of those northern industrialists were very scared that the South would start building its own industrial plants, and it would start doing business with Europe, and it wouldn't need them, and they got scared.
Well, sure, if we let the South with their black slaves go, what are we going to do with all these Irish white slaves that we got trapped in our textile mills?
Correct. Yeah. What could they do? I mean, there were textile plants all over the North, and as I said again, the lifeline of the nation was that cotton.
Right.
And to lose that income, but I believe in my heart that the Southern men would have still done right by the North.
I think so.
They just wanted to be left alone. As a matter of fact, the mayor of New York City said we should succeed too, mm-hmm. and continue doing and remain neutral and continue doing business with the South. But it scared those men to death.
Well, these people were still. I think that there's some people that were not. You know, that old thing, they went out from us because they were not of us. I think you had some northern industrialists that secretly, they wanted the South to secede so that they could go down there and basically do a hostile takeover. I mean, that's my personal thing.
I don't put anything past that.
You know what I'm saying? I think there's some groups that were just sick, up north, that were sick and tired of the Constitution, the limitations that were placed on them, but they didn't have the courage to step out on their own so they could say, well, they did it first. Mm-hmm. So if we could get you to do it, then we could abolish the Constitution in principle. Mm-hmm. And
as it is now.
As it is now. And see, this is one of the problems that I've had, and as much as I love the Sons of Confederate Veterans and some of these other groups, churches and by and large, is that many of the churches, after the war between the states, in the 1930s, they put into this income tax, which was another Yankee way to...
Lincoln's way of funding New York.
Right, and then it came up in the 30s again. Mm-hmm. Well, they passed what they call now the 501c3.
I know about it.
And at the time, in the 30s, it was the 205b something or other, Anyway, basically crippling